everyone. My name is Katie Browning, and I am a Community Engagement Manager here at Copado. And let's quickly get started. So as you know, we've recently launched our DevOps Exchange, and this is the first enterprise SaaS marketplace for DevOps. And this is the first episode of a webinar series that we're very excited to bring to all of you, where we will be promoting the listings published by partners, community members, and by Copado Labs. So today we are going to be talking about how to practice DevSecOps with DigitSec. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much, first of all, for being patient with the technical difficulties, and second of all, for being great members of the Copado community, for being customers, partners, whoever you are out there. We really appreciate everything you do, the energy you bring, and your inspiration. And ultimately, you are the reason that we're here building our innovative DevOps platform. So thank you for the support and for being here today. Today, we have a really great session planned with two great speakers. We have Senior Director of Product Management, Alan Jimenez from Copado, Waqas Nazir, the CEO at DigitSec. We will be doing a very quick community update from me. I want to make sure you're in the loop of what's going on in the Copado community, and then I'll pass it over to Alan, who's going to walk us through what is Copado DevOps Exchange, and then we'll have a great conversation around DevSecOps, and then DigitSec will actually be doing a live demo of their solution, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So be sure you ask any questions that you might have in the question feature in the chat, and we'll be sure to get those answered as we have time at the end. So first thing, a quick Copado community update. If you're not already a member of the Copado community, I really encourage you to sign up. You will need to become a member to really utilize the DevOps Exchange and all the features there. Here is a QR code you can scan to get signed up today, or you can go to success.copado.com and sign up using the referral code Jan24th. And also here, I encourage you to take a screenshot of this slide because we have a Copado robotic testing certification code for you. So if you're not already Copado robotic testing certified, you'll be able to take that certification exam for free. This is a really great opportunity to dip your toes into the Copado Academy, start getting certified, taking those robotic testing modules. So I encourage you to utilize that and take a screenshot of this slide. And then last thing for the Copado community update that I have for you today is a really exciting event coming up on March 23rd, and that is our annual Copado Community Day event. And this is an event driven by Copado community members, sharing those innovative ideas that they have. Lots of breakout sessions, roundtable discussions, workshop opportunities. So definitely encourage you to check that out. And leading up to that event, we are actually accepting award nominations for our innovation awards. And if you're innovating with DevOps Exchange, you're going to want to check this out to share your story. So be sure to look out for information on our social media channels and within the Copado community about that. Now I'm going to pass it over to Alan so we can get started with a great conversation around the Copado DevOps Exchange.
Katie, thank you very much for the introduction. And thank you everyone for attending this session and for your patience, by the way. You've been waiting in there to see what we have to offer on today's update on the DevOps Exchange. So we really appreciate that patience. So for the people that do not know what the DevOps Exchange is, I think Katie put it rightly so. It's the first DevOps marketplace for enterprise clouds. And if you are familiar with the Salesforce domain, the simplest way to explain this is that this is our app exchange. But the difference here is that this marketplace is targeted to our user community, which is comprised of around 66,000 DevOps enthusiasts, in which, in a day-to-day basis, are basically doing everything DevOps, right? And one of the reasons that we launched this exchange program is because even though we know that Copado offers a market-leading product portfolio on DevOps and testing. And we are also very humbled to see all the success stories from our customers on transforming their Salesforce ways of working. We also recognize that there's always going to be a DevOps team out there that has a very specific challenge or a very special situation on their own DevOps journeys. So over the past couple of years, our team in the product side and also in the strategy side, we have focused our efforts on creating a platform on the Copado side because we want to empower those teams to build innovation on top of our solution, right? And those innovations and those solutions are going to help us to address those specific challenges that every DevOps team has out there, right? We know that we cannot do this alone, and we know that we are going to need some of that great innovation and some of the great ideas that our own community and customers are going to have, but also our partners, right? It is important to note that this exchange program was launched very recently. We launched it in a Salesforce event in New York with an amazing reception from the community. But we started relatively small. So together with our community, our technology partners, and the Copado Labs team, we have an exchange which consists of about 40 plus ready to install solutions, right? And these can be found in our success website. You actually go to the success.copado.com and you will see a tab called DevOps Exchange. And this is where you're are going to notice all the listings that our community partners and Copado Labs teams have created to address those specific challenges, right? And you might ask yourself, well, what is included in those solutions? What kind of solutions can I find? What kind of problems can I solve? Well, we have a total of 5 different types of solutions. For the people that are familiar with the Copado product stack, we have, for example, data templates that are basically the fuel for our data deployer product. We also have integration solutions, like in the case of this today's webinar, this is where we're going to talk about DigitSec, which is an integration between Copado DevOps Enterprise with the DigitSec security testing solution. So we publish that in the form of an integration. One feature from the platform, which is very popular, which are the Copado functions, that also helps us unlock integrations with other more advanced logic and the different platforms. So we have, for example, partners like Ep.1, who are, let's say, engaged with us with their Salesforce security testing solution. As you guys know, we also have the CRT product. So what we also build in the exchange is starter kits to get your testing teams kick-started as quickly as possible with pre-built test cases. And last but not least, we also have what we call enterprise applications, which these are very comprehensive plugins that will help us, for example, not only to deploy Salesforce Sales Cloud, but also we are working, for example, with Accenture, which is building a plugin on top of Copado to be able to support Marketing Cloud. And we're working also with our professional services team to support Commerce Cloud. And the only way that this is possible is because of the platform, right? This platform basically allows us to build this innovation on top of the products that we already offer in the market. Now, on today's topic, I want to deep dive more into our strategy to work with technology partners. So I'm very happy on this particular session today because I've been connecting with our partners at DigitSec already for a few months. And this is for us a culmination of the work that we have invested over the past few months across our teams. And before we jump into the topic of what the solution they offer and what kind of challenges they solve, I think it's important that we, first of all, introduce our partner, and then we have a bit of a chat about the specifics of the domain that they focus on, which is IT security and compliance. So on this line, I would like to welcome our partner, Waqas. Partner, are you Waqas, are you there?
Yes, Alan. Thank you for having us. Nice to see you.
No, nice to see you as well, Waqas. And as I said before, we're very happy to be here. This is one of the first sessions that we're going to have, so we can showcase the solution and the integration that you guys have built with the Copado products.
We're very excited to be part of this launch, and Copado has been a wonderful partner of ours. I think we go together as bread and jam. You do DevOps, we do security, and we're together able to bring DevSecOps to the Salesforce world, and we're really excited about that.
DevSecOps, that's obviously a very a buzzword, right, and a very important term that you see in the market. But I want to make sure that we start on we level the field, right? Because some of the people might not be familiar with DevSecOps or IT security and compliance. So let's have a bit of a brief conversation around it. Maybe let's start by, if you can help us understanding why IT security is important, and more importantly, why Salesforce customers should care about it.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think unless we have a good understanding of what security really means from a Salesforce perspective, we're bound to make mistakes if we're protecting our data. One of the greatest challenges when it comes to platforms like Salesforce, which are highly customizable, is the dangerous assumption that we cannot mess up, right? Whatever we do, there is never going to be a scenario where we're going to impact the security of our data. And that's a very dangerous assumption to make, right? And IT security basically addresses this assumption by making sure that you have the controls in place to not expose your data, right? Your data is very important, and it carries with it the trust of your customers, really. And so if you don't have the controls in place to address the security of that data, you're more likely operating in a very risky environment. And so for Salesforce specifically, we must understand that there is Salesforce responsibility and there's your responsibility, where Copado comes into play as well, right? Customers were highly customized. They're writing their own code. They're writing their own workflows on top of Salesforce to really harness the power of the platform using Copado. They need to have the controls in place to make sure those changes do not introduce security flaws or security risks within their environments.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I've always dealt with the misconception that because Salesforce is a cloud market leader, right, that it's very secure and we don't have to care about it. But I mean, it's a platform, right? And what our DevOps community does on a daily basis is customize it and create new applications on top of it. And there definitely there's some work that needs to be done in terms of governance of IT security to protect those changes that are going into production, right? So that resonates quite a lot. Maybe can you help us a little bit illustrate with some real world examples what you have seen in the industry, especially around Salesforce?
Yeah, so you're right in the sense that Salesforce as a company takes security very seriously, right? And they take their responsibility of making sure that they provide a secure platform for teams to build on top of is evident from their track record. But what we've seen is when teams start to customize Salesforce, we've unfortunately seen some incidents where a small misconfiguration or an exposed piece of code has led to data being exposed. And one pretty surprising anecdote when it comes to Salesforce security is that these incidents are sometimes they go unnoticed for weeks up to months. In one case, there was a company which was exposing data for over 6 months, and there were about 300 unique incidents of their data being exposed. So like 300 folks basically took their data out of a span of 6 months. So that goes to the point that there is less visibility in the Salesforce world because of the notion that security needs to be something that is always handled by the platform provider and not those who are customizing it. So that creates a very risky environment, but also creates a high value target for attackers, right? Most of these platforms are publicly available. You can ping, Copado Salesforce instance or our Salesforce instance over the internet, right? So by design, they are available to anyone who wants to poke at it. So that creates an interesting attack vector for attackers. So naturally, unless you take that approach, you're gonna have some unfortunate incidents when it comes to Salesforce.
Yeah, to me, this conversation, it becomes very clear that the development team that it's responsible for creating value on top of Salesforce has also responsibility, right? And that's where you guys come in. I believe, to help those teams to be compliant and to be secure, right? Because one of the things that we do with Copado is that we deliver change at high speed, but we have to do it securely, right? So essentially, you want to put the airbags to the Ferrari, so to speak, right? So now that being said, I would assume, Waqas, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's some level of investment that the team needs to do, right, in terms of changing their mindset, but also investing in the right tooling. But often we hear customers saying that it might be too expensive or it requires too much effort. But what is the cost of not doing anything?
So I think that's the doomsday scenario, right? I typically say that there's a time that you can do security right, and there's a time that you have to do security. You have no other option, and the time when you have no other option is probably the worst time to do security, because something bad has already happened, and now you're basically trying to minimize the damage, right? So the cost of doing no security is well documented, right? Whenever you have a data breach, the cost can be anywhere from $3 to $4 million. The trust that it erodes from a brand when that happens has soft impact, which cannot be calculated. Really, how many customers actually leave the platform when that happens. So there's like continuous impact on a company when something bad happens from a security perspective. So I think the cost of doing security versus not doing security is a no-brainer, because if you think of the breach analysis costs, that outweighs any security tooling you can put in place. So a company really needs to ask this question, right? Whether they want to do security proactively or reactively, right? And if they say, want to do it, proactively, then they need to put in some investment into making sure that the changes that they're pushing through, for example, through Copado, are actually resilient and secure, right?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And look, because we had to move to the next section, but one of the things that I think it's important to highlight is, of course, the focus on regulated industries like pharmaceuticals and the level of compliance that they need to have on basically based on legislation. I live in Europe, right? So GDPR comes into the head, but maybe can you have a minute to explain why compliance is important to you guys?
Absolutely. So from our perspective, security bugs or security issues do not exist in silos, right? They have a context around it, and that context is basically the type of data, right? So if you have healthcare data, naturally your compliance is going to be in relation to that particular compliance framework. If you have data on European Union residents, then GDPR applies, right? And each of these compliance frameworks come with the responsibility of making sure that you're doing things in line with these frameworks, right? So unless you have controls in place which flag the compliance risk for a specific change, you basically are creating an environment in which your risk for compliance related issues increases. For example, with GDPR, if you're non-compliant, of course, there's a fee that you have to pay if things do go wrong, and that can be as high as 2% of a company's revenue. So it's pretty significant if you don't address compliance within the Salesforce world.
Yeah, indeed. So that there is definitely a price to pay for not doing things, right? So look, Waqas, we have chatted about this for long periods of time. We can have a lot of fun talking about it, but moving on into the presentation, thanks a lot for clarifying, by the way. I hope our community understands a little bit more what we mean with IT security and compliance. Now, we're very excited to show the actual integration and the solution, but before we do that, I believe that our team has prepared a couple of polls because we would like to get the feedback from the community at large. So maybe Katie and Agustin, can you help us running the polls? So the first poll is, we want to ask you guys that are in the field whether you are aware of any development security practices within your organization, specifically around Salesforce. So please be, let's say, try to share with us your experience so far. You don't have to work in the field, but we just want to understand if you are aware that there are any practices within your organization. So I think we're going to give 30 seconds, I believe, for everyone to answer. By the way, the answers are no, I'm not aware, yes, but it can be improved, and the third, yes, and it's perfect, which is I'm very interested to see an answer like that. Okay, so what you will see in your screen probably is the results of the poll. What I can see is that that's interesting. 8% of the respondents say that it's perfect. Well, maybe there's something that we can learn from you guys, so we'll definitely contact you. But of course, on the other ones, it's quite an important difference, right? That it's kind of divided. So you see a lot of people that are not aware of any security practices at all. But then the other cohort of, let's say, the respondents say that it can be improved. So happy to see these guys. So maybe let's move to the next question. Do you have visibility and control over all vulnerabilities in your custom code? And the answers are yes, we are fully aware, or no, we don't have any visibility or control. So we're going to give a little bit of time for everyone to respond. Okay, so the majority of the people don't have visibility. So I certainly hope that this presentation is going to be very useful for all of you, right? And for the ones that are fully aware, well, I'm happy that you guys have got control in place for that. And I certainly hope that whatever we show today is going to be complementary to what you're doing. So maybe we're going to run the last poll, which is, are you planning to automate your security testing as part of your CI/CD pipeline? I would assume that most of you have CI/CD in place with Copado. So we want to know what level of automation you have reached by integrating these two worlds, deploying fast, but also deploying securely. So there is a few answers in there. So we're very curious to see what your roadmap looks like. So we're going to give 10 more seconds. Oh, 5, I think. Interesting. The majority of the people try. That's really interesting, right? You know what happens when you try and you're not successful, you drop it, right? And as Waqas said, the cost of not continuing or not doing nothing can be pretty high. So to be honest, guys, I'm very happy to be here because one of the things that we want to do with Exchange is to make it very simple for the users to deploy these integrations, right? And to get them to use them quickly to deliver value to their projects. So I certainly hope that this is going to be of interest to all of you guys. Thanks a lot for answering the questions. This is very insightful. So without further ado, I would like to continue to the next section of the presentation, which is to deep dive into the solution and most importantly, the integration. So yeah, let's take it forward, Waqas.
Thank you, Alan. That was really interesting to get that, poll data. I think it's important to understand that security is really a journey and an approach, much like DevOps, right? You cannot say you're 100% perfect when it comes to DevOps. There's always room for improvement. And then the same can be said for security, right? So what we've done at DigitSec is we come from a security background to the Salesforce world. And what we saw with Salesforce is an opportunity to do security right from the get-go. And the way we tackled this problem is we basically took a step back and said, what are some of the things that can go bad from a security perspective in a Salesforce deployment? And so we identified 4 key things that can have an impact to a Salesforce org from a security perspective. Number 1 was, of course, the custom code that's being written on top of Salesforce. You can have security bugs in that. You can have supply chain issues, third-party risk in that. So that's one thing that our platform does. It analyzes all Salesforce code from a security perspective and identifies any security bugs within that code. The second thing we do is we basically take our findings and then we put them through an automated test harness to basically validate the things that we find through our code analysis, right? So think of this as like a simulation to exploit the bugs that we found. And the reason why we do this is we want to create accurate findings, because one of the challenges with doing security is that it can create noise within a development environment. And that can actually undermine the reason why you're doing security, right, which has become better and more resilient. So sometimes companies would implement security, but then turn it off because it generates a lot of noise for them. So we do the dynamic testing to ensure that the findings are very accurate. The third thing we do is, of course, to look at the configuration of a Salesforce deployment, because code is only half the picture of what a deployment looks like. There's a lot of customization done when it comes to the way Salesforce is configured. So you want to flag any configuration-related issues as they're being pushed through a pipeline. And then lastly, we look at any third-party risk, right? So if a development team is using third-party solutions, whether those third-party solutions have known security issues or not. So taking those 4 key things, we can deliver highly accurate and very specific recommendations to a DevOps team to ensure that their changes are secure. And that, in essence, gives you the DevSecOps approach to doing CI/CD. So with that, we can show you like how we've done this. The integration itself is supported within Copado Classic. So this is a pre-quality framework, but we also support the new quality framework approach, which allows for many tools to be plugged into a Copado pipeline, which is actually a great feature enabled by Copado for many of the vendors which are enhancing DevOps practice by enabling like security or performance or testing and things of that nature. Now our 4 security scans have over 120 rules, and then the customers can actually write and customize some rules on top of that. Our findings are embedded within the Copado pipeline, and I'll go over that in the demo section. So it's very easy for developers as well as users of DevOps to not have to ramp up to a new platform to use our solution. And of course, doing security right results in greater ROI and being able to do more when it comes to the enhancement. So when you do ship, you ship with the confidence that you've done the right things to secure each release. So with that, we'll jump into a demo to show you how our integration works. So our integration basically works seamlessly with Copado at the user story level. So all a user has to do if they have our integration enabled is to work as they do with any Copado environment or user story. And in the background, our solution would work. For example, here we've committed some changes to a user story. Now our integration is enabled within this environment. So what will happen now is that if a customer goes into the test tab, they'll see that that commit has actually triggered a security scan of all the changes which are part of that commit. And we write a result of that security scan within Copado. So a user does not ever need to leave Copado to consume the results. And you get the result of your change within Copado. So here we can drill down into what those changes are. So we can see like the severity and the types of issues that we found, whether a security gate was passed or not. What's also interesting is like not only you can get the high-level statistical data, you can actually drill into the findings. So here we have a software injection bug that was found in the controller that was checked in. And our findings are actually very detailed on like where the issue is and why is it a concern. And then we have a detailed trace within the finding of the code base. So you can actually quickly see that if this is a real bug or not. And it saves a lot of time for developers to ascertain the validity of a bug. So this basically helps you enable your teams to do security without having to change their behavior within a DevOps practice, right? They're operating as they were before. The only difference now is that they have the ability to do security as part of their normal day-to-day operations. So the net result is really allowing dev teams to do security from the inception of the change, which is a Copado user story, and then doing it as a step throughout the deployment process. And that really enables teams to do security right from the get-go and not have any surprises in production, which when it comes to security can be pretty costly. So we welcome you to try and test out our integration and give us your feedback. We're always interested in getting customer feedback, and we've worked with many teams to fine-tune the integration to work, make it work better for their workflows.
Fantastic. Waqas, thanks a lot for the.
So with that, I'll turn it back to Alan.
You can hear me, right? There you go.
Yes.
No, thanks a lot. I think that the audio broke a little bit in there, but I was very happy to see with the DigitSec working together with Copado, right? I've seen the demo already a lot of times, but I still get excited. And also the things that excites me as well is that we're working together to get this into the quality gate framework, right? Especially for those customers that are adopting the second generation of Copado. So there's a lot of more innovation to come, right? And yeah, can't wait for helping all of our users to deploy and get value out of this integration. So, Waqas, thanks a lot for that, but please don't go away. I would assume that there's going to be, we reached the point where maybe there's going to be some questions from the community and from the attendees. And I would be more than happy to work with Waqas to answer them, right? What do you guys think? So, do we have any questions? Okay, we got one question here. How often can I run scans? Is there any limit? Maybe Waqas, you can help me with that?
Yeah, so, I mean, we don't want to limit any company's ability to run scans. That's one of the things that our platform does. It doesn't limit the volume of scans. And our recommendation on when to do the scanning is actually as early as possible. So the way we've integrated with Copado is at the user story level, where actually the initial change within a feature is being done. So you have these minute changes, if you will, coming through all these different user stories. And if they're caught at that level, technically you should have addressed everything when you're making a promotion, right? But you can also scan at the time when you're doing a promotion or a build to basically make sure that actually all those changes are being addressed as they're being developed and also as they're being pushed into higher environments.
Okay, great. By the way, for everyone out there, if you're not able to put a question, there is a question section in the GoToWebinar, or I think we can also do it through the chat. But I'm also getting some questions here in the chat. So there is a second question, Waqas. Is secure coding also enforced?
Yeah, so basically what our solution is doing in essence is making a minimum bar for your coding practices. So these are the minimum things that any enterprise development team on Salesforce should be doing, right? And that is being enforced by an automated solution. So right now, people either use manual processes or best practices to enforce it, but with our solution, you're actually enforcing it in an automated fashion. And one of the key reasons for a company to really use a DevOps platform like Copado is the ability to do things consistently, right? You don't want inconsistencies across each build or each release, right? So if you incorporate security in a DevOps process, one thing you'll always get is the consistency, right? The same level of tests being done on every change as it's going through the pipeline. So naturally, that's going to enforce a level of secure coding across the code base, not just those who know of security, but also those who may not know of it, but the tool is going to enforce the same rules for their changes as well.
Fantastic. I hope that answered the question for the community. We have another question. We're going to bug you with questions, Waqas. So, can we see the status of the scan while it's running? I think that was part of the demo, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, so when the scan initially starts, we create a result record within Copado, and it'll say that it's pending. I think in the demo, you may have seen those, like there was 2 test cases results within the test tab within Copado. So if you have Copado Next Gen, there's a test tab. So you'll see that there's a scan running on that user story. You can also see that in our platform as well. If you came to our platform, you'll see all the pending scans for a given environment.
Yeah, but it's really nice that you see pretty much even the remediation and like a summary directly in the Copado console, right? About those scans, which is pretty great.
Yeah, yep. And that's, again, something that came out of our interactions with actual Copado teams, right? They said that, it's great that we're doing security, but now we have to go to another platform to consume the results. Why can't I get on Copado? So it's like, why can't you? That's a good question. So we actually built the ability for them to actually consume the results, right? There's no point in coming to other platform.
Exactly. Want to make it easy for users, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
And one very important one, Waqas, and I think I can answer that question myself. How can I get the integration and how can I get DigitSec? That's a great question, right? Actually, I believe I'm not able to control the slides, but in the next slide, you can get this solution today. It's in the DevOps Exchange. You can either browse it and search for it. Just type in DigitSec on the search bar. But we want to make it easy for you guys. So just scan the barcode, and then you will be redirected straight into the solution. And you can literally just click on the Get It Now button. And if you have a Copado user that is able to deploy a package in the Copado org, you're basically ready to go. And all the information around how to configure it, how to deploy it, and also some user guides can be found in that listing. So very important to know is that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is for the enterprise DevOps, right? We also have listings for an integration with the Copado Essentials product, which is also out there. But this link specifically is for the enterprise edition. So great question, and please feel free to navigate, and please let us know how the integration added value to your teams. So, all right, now we need to wrap up. We have a few minutes left, and first of all, Waqas, thank you very much. Like I said before, we've been working on this for a while, and It's been very exciting to get to know your team, but more importantly, we've always been very focused on customer success, and I'm very happy to see the solution out in the wild.
Likewise, it's a pleasure to be here, and we really see that together bringing a great solution to the teams adopting DevOps. So we look forward to having more conversations on how we can do this better.
Great, thanks a lot for hosting. And just to continue the conversation, I want to leave with an end note, especially because, as I mentioned before, we cannot do this alone. We're working with great partners like DigitSec and other partners in the ecosystem. But one of the things that we recently also published in our exchange is the ability for you, the community, to innovate together with us. I'm pretty sure that for the guys that are in the field and are directly faced with the problems in a day-to-day basis on deploying changes from one environment to another, there might be a gap that you might be able to solve with a script, with a function, with an integration. So we are opening up the exchange for the community to contribute on those solutions, right? So if you go to the DevOps Exchange website, to the Success website in the DevOps Exchange micro page, you will see a header on the top of the listings that has a link that contains the instructions on how you can publish. And more importantly, it explains how that publication will be used, what you will get in, let's say, back, and also the process on getting this published, because of course, it's not as simple as just submitting something, but it goes through a process where we have to make sure that it fits the purpose of what you're trying to solve. It's following some best practices, and more importantly, we need to do, in the context of this discussion, a security validation for your solution. So there is a process in place, but especially for the folks familiar with the App Exchange process, it's not as exhaustive. We want to get your solution in a very short time to market. So please expect a little bit of a review, but it's not going to take too long, right? We're going to do our best to put resources from our team to get that solution into the wild and to make sure that we can make that solution available for other teams which are maybe facing a very similar problem. So you basically submit your solution, you package it, then we will review it, and eventually we're just going to declare it published, and then it's available for our 65,000 community members and 1,200 customers. So I really invite you guys to innovate together with us, and I hope that we can get some of that innovation to our community.
Thank you, Alan. I just wanted to pop on and thank you, Alan, and thank you, Waqas, for a great conversation today. And thank you to all of our participants for being here. We are recording this conversation and we'll be sending it to you, and feel free to send it along to other people who think this might be valuable for. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the first session in an ongoing series, so stay on the lookout for more sessions coming up in the future to dive deeper into different listings on the DevOps Exchange. And hopefully we'll start seeing some of your listings popping up on there as well. So definitely get connected in the Copado community and start checking out the DevOps Exchange. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.